Remember these 9 babies. You won't believe how they look now. It was summer 2021 when the entire country held its breath. In a quiet Texas town, 27-year-old Emily Carter, just a school teacher living a peaceful life, walked into her doctor's office thinking she was pregnant with twins. But what the ultrasound revealed left everyone stunned. Not 2, not 3, but 9. 9 little heartbeats flickering on the screen. The room went silent. Emily clutched her husband Jason's hand, tears streaming down her cheeks as one question echoed in her mind. How are we going to survive this? From that moment, life changed forever. Doctors scrambled to assess the risks. 9 babies meant 9 chances for something to go wrong. Specialists from all over the country flew in, hospitals debated logistics, and Emily was moved to a top-tier facility in Chicago. Meanwhile, Jason, a former firefighter, stood beside her like a rock. "We'll do this," he said quietly, "no matter what it takes." As news spread, their story lit up the internet. People couldn't believe it. 9 babies in one birth? It felt impossible. But Emily's belly kept growing, and with it, the hope of a miracle. On October 4th, 2021, under a sky full of storm clouds, the unimaginable happened. Through a complex, high-risk C-section involving over 30 medical staff, the babies entered the world one after another. 5 boys, 4 girls, tiny, fragile, and barely breathing, but alive. Jason wept. Emily drifted in and out of consciousness. "Please let them live," she whispered over and over. The NICU became their home. The beeping of machines, the sterile lights, the soft cries. It was the soundscape of a battle being fought with love and science. Emily stayed bedridden for weeks, while Jason became part-time nurse, part-time guardian. Angel. He learned how to feed with syringes, how to monitor oxygen levels, how to hold a baby barely the size of his palm. Reporters lined up outside, camera crews camped out. But inside that hospital room, none of that mattered. All that mattered was 9 tiny humans defying every odd. 9 lives hanging in the balance. The doctors called it a miracle. Jason just called it his family. They run through the yard like a wave of sunshine. 9 sets of feet pattering on soft grass, 9 different laughs echoing across the Carter family's Texas home. Emily stands on the porch, hand over her heart, watching the chaos with a kind of joy too big for words. "Remember when we didn't know if they'd even make it?" she whispers to Jason. He just nods, eyes misty, arms crossed, overwhelmed. Each child is different now. Little Ellie with her love of flowers, Jacob always asking questions, Noah always the first to help. It's like watching 9 little hearts grow outside your own chest. Neighbors still stop by just to catch a glimpse. The Carter 9, they're called, like a team, like a legend. People from all over still send letters. "We prayed for you," one note reads. "We watched your story every day." And yet, to Emily and Jason, it never felt like a news story. It felt like a storm they survived with their bare hands. Sleepless nights, scary hospital calls, the first time they all smiled at once. Each moment is etched into memory. Painful, precious, priceless. They don't take anything for granted. Not a scraped knee, not a bedtime snuggle. Not a quiet evening without beeping monitors. Doctors visit often. The kids still go through evaluations, therapies, early learning programs. But they're thriving, beyond what anyone predicted. "They'll always be a bit behind," one doctor said gently years ago. But now they're reciting the alphabet, painting butterflies on the fence, hugging each other after silly fights. Their bond is something unbreakable, invisible, but real. Emily often says, "They're pieces of the same miracle, You can't separate them. And anyone who watches them together can feel it, something sacred, something rare. One fall afternoon, the whole family took a walk to the local park. Strangers smiled and waved. A few asked for pictures, but the kids didn't notice. They were too busy climbing, chasing birds, sharing snacks. Emily snapped a photo, 9 little heads all facing the sunset. That picture went viral overnight. Not because of fame, but because of the feeling it gave people. Hope. That maybe, just maybe, miracles still happen in this messy, unpredictable world. That maybe love really can carry you through the impossible. And when bedtime comes, the house slowly quiets. One by one, they crawl into beds built just for them. Jason walks from room to room, turning off lights, brushing foreheads, whispering, "I'm proud of you." In the soft glow of the nightlight, Emily stands at the hallway's edge and whispers, "Back, we did it." The road ahead is still long, but every step they take now is paved with love, laughter, and the courage of 2 parents who never gave up. You won't believe how far they've come, or how beautiful their tomorrow looks. There was a time when Jason couldn't imagine buying diapers for 9. Now he can't imagine life without their bedtime stories and early morning giggles. The journey that once felt overwhelming is now the greatest gift he's ever known. In the quiet moments, like when Grace brings her little sister a blanket without being asked, or when Dylan runs to hug his mom just because Jason sees it clearly. These children were never a burden. They were the blessing they never expected, but always needed. And now, their home is not just full, it's overflowing with purpose. Every corner of their house holds a memory. The wall in the hallway marked with tiny handprints. The kitchen lined with drawings taped up like trophies. Even the backyard swing set, which Jason built from scratch, has become a symbol of what's possible when you don't give up. The Carters turned heartbreak into hope, fear into faith, struggle into strength, and each of their children carries a piece of that transformation, smiling without even realizing the weight they once overcame. School came faster than expected. 9 backpacks, 9 lunch boxes, 9 kids lined up by the door, buzzing with excitement. Emily cried that morning, not out of sadness, but out of awe. "We were told they might not walk, and now they're running ahead of us," she whispered. That day, teachers called after pickup just to say how bright, kind, and curious the kids were. "They shine," one teacher said, "like they've seen the world's hardest parts and still choose joy. And maybe that's what makes them different. They were born into a fight for survival, but they grew into warriors of light as the seasons pass. The Carter house becomes a symbol, not just for their neighborhood, but for families around the country. People drive by, some leaving gifts on the porch, others leaving letters. One envelope simply said, "You reminded me not to give up on becoming a parent." Emily keeps that one taped to the fridge. It's a daily reminder that their story isn't just their own. It's rippled outward, touching lives they'll never meet, giving people the strength to hold on one more day, to believe again, to try again. But just as life began to feel steady, everything changed. One evening, the power went out. Not just in the house, but across the entire county. At first, Jason and Emily thought it was a simple outage. But when they looked outside, sirens howled in the distance. A nearby chemical plant had exploded, spewing toxic fumes across parts of the town. The Carters had less than an hour to evacuate. Emily grabbed the emergency bag they had packed years ago but never thought they'd use. Jason raced to gather all 9 kids, each one groggy from sleep, confused, scared. The van couldn't fit them all comfortably. But comfort wasn't the goal. Survival was. They drove through chaos. Streets were jammed. Police redirected traffic. Lights flickered red through the smoke-filled sky. Emily held back tears as she clutched baby Nora in her arms, whispering, "Just breathe, sweetie. Mommy's got you." Jason's hands were locked on the wheel, his voice steady but tight as he repeated, "We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay." And through the chaos, through the thick veil of panic, the kids stayed mostly silent, sensing somehow the weight of what was happening. They didn't cry, they didn't scream, they trusted their parents. When they finally reached safety, a crowded gymnasium turned emergency shelter. Jason and Emily collapsed onto the floor, surrounded by their children. And in that moment, stripped of everything but each other, Jason looked at Emily and whispered, "We didn't come this far to lose them now." The lights above buzzed faintly. Volunteers rushed around. But the Carters? They built a tiny circle of peace amid disaster. Emily sang lullabies. Jason handed out crackers. And slowly, even there, in that cold, unfamiliar place, their family became a refuge for others, comforting strangers, calming other frightened children, reminding people what love looks like in the dark. Days passed before it was safe to return. When they finally pulled back into their neighborhood, the street was lined with debris. Their home, though still standing, had been damaged. Windows shattered, smoke stains across the siding. Emily gasped. Jason stood frozen. But then little Ava stepped out of the van, held her father's hand, and said, "Daddy, we can fix it. Together." That was all he needed. He turned toward the rubble, not with despair, but determination. And with the same strength they'd used to raise 9 children against the odds, the Carters began again. Not because they had to, but because they believed in what their family stood for. And slowly, brick by brick, memory by memory, they rebuilt. Neighbors came by in quiet waves, some bringing meals, others bringing tools. No one said much, but every gesture spoke volumes. There was a shared reverence for what the Carter family had endured and what they continued to represent. Resilience without arrogance, grace without pride. Jason never once asked for help, but when an old friend from high school showed up with a bucket of paint and a soft smile, he simply nodded and handed him a brush. Emily, exhausted but never unkind, made lemonade with the kids and sat on the lawn watching as people she hadn't seen in years helped mend the home she had once thought lost. The children, those 9 little miracles, adjusted faster than anyone expected. They didn't cry for what was gone. They laughed when paint splashed their clothes. They cheered when a new window was set into place. And every night when the work was done and the house echoed with a new kind of silence, Jason and Emily would tuck them in and whisper the same words. "We are home. We are together. That's enough." There were no grand declarations, just the comfort of shared space, of held hands, of knowing that love doesn't need noise to be powerful, it just needs presence. Months later, when the final piece of siding was nailed in and the garden began to bloom again, the Carters didn't throw a party. Instead, they hosted a simple dinner on the porch. Folding chairs, paper plates. Jason grilled. Emily made her mother's sweet cornbread. A warm breeze moved through the trees, and laughter rolled like soft thunder across the neighborhood. It wasn't just a meal. It was a reunion, a gathering of hearts, stitched together by quiet strength and mutual respect. The local newspaper wrote a short piece titled, "The House That Love Rebuilt." Emily saved it in a drawer, not for fame, but for the children. One day, when they'd be old enough to understand, she wanted them to see how compassion had shaped their lives, how gentleness had carried them through fire. No grand speeches, no spotlight, just truth, written in calm ink. Autumn arrived like a soft hymn, brushing golden leaves across the Carter family's yard. The trees whispered in hues of amber and firelight, their branches swaying like old lullabies above the roof, that now stood proudly renewed. Inside the home, laughter danced through the air like wind chimes in a breeze, light, melodic, unforced. The 9 children, each a verse in the song of survival, played among sunbeams that filtered through the windows, painting their world in warmth and wonder. Jason often paused in the doorway just to listen, to breathe it in, as if afraid the moment might float away like smoke if he moved too quickly. Emily moved through the house with a grace like water, gentle, vital, ever-flowing. Her hands, once trembling with exhaustion, now stirred soups, folded little socks, wiped down kitchen counters as the scent of cinnamon and apple wafted in the air. She hummed quietly, the tune one her mother used to sing, a melody that had cradled her as a child, now passing through generations like a sacred inheritance. Outside, wildflowers pushed through the soil once trampled by disaster, reclaiming space with soft defiance, reminding everyone who passed that beauty can rise from ruin if only given time. Every corner of the home bore the fingerprints of gratitude. The worn wooden table, scarred with years and memory, stood as the heartbeat of the house, its surface etched with morning cereal spills and evening candlelight. Walls were lined with photographs, not staged, but caught mid-laughter, mid-tear, mid-living. No one smiled perfectly, but every frame was honest. In the soft hours before bedtime, Jason would gather the children by the fireplace, his voice like velvet over old bricks, telling stories of stars, of strength, of how their family came to be not just through blood, but through belief. The neighborhood, once just a cluster of houses, had become something sacred. People no longer passed by without waving, without stopping to ask how the Carters were doing. The home had become a lantern in the dusk, a place people pointed to when speaking of hope, of perseverance, of the poetry found in ordinary love. And on nights when the moon hung low and full above the roof, casting silver light across the porch, Emily and Jason would sit quietly, fingers interlaced, saying nothing at all, because some love doesn't need words. It only needs a place to rest. In the quiet moments between dawn and day, Jason and Emily found their greatest strength not in the world outside, but in each other and the 9 little hearts that beat within. Their home. Every smile, every tear, every scraped knee was a thread weaving them closer into a tapestry of love so fierce it could weather any storm. They held each child's hand through first steps, first words, and every sleepless night, their hearts swelling with a quiet pride that only parents truly know. The challenges were many, but so was their unwavering commitment, a promise whispered in tired smiles and tender embraces that no one would ever face life alone. Together, they built a sanctuary where laughter was louder than fear, where mistakes were met with patience, and where every child knew they were cherished beyond measure. Family dinners were never rushed, filled instead with stories, songs, and the kind of connection that time can never fade. Through every chaos and calm, Jason and Emily stood side by side, their partnership a steadfast beacon that illuminated the path forward. They showed their children that family is not just about blood, but about hearts that choose to beat as one. As night fell softly on the Carter household, the children nestled close, their breathing slow and even beneath a blanket of stars. Jason and Emily exchanged a glance, a silent vow to keep building, loving, and believing in miracles big and small. Their journey was far from over, but in this moment, surrounded by the gentle glow of family, they knew they had already found everything they ever needed. And that was enough. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe for more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from?